I turn my phone on silent.
Good call. I have no notes, so don't bother reading. Hey, we're two fat guys.
And we just watched more Disney Associated Productions. Now we're on to the classic Associated Productions.
That's right. These are the ones that you, like, when you say Associated Productions, these are what people will think. When you describe what it is, these are the films that people will think of.
Yeah, so we have Mary Poppins. Mm-hmm. A bit out of order, which we'll talk about in a minute. Saving Mr. Banks.
For obvious reasons, once we talk about it.
Or you can probably figure it out already.
Yeah.
Bedknobs and Broomsticks.
Mm-hmm.
Pete and Pete's Dragon.
Yes.
And Closing. Oh, no.
And Closing. Closing's in all these marathons. They kept remaking it. It was weird. So these are the height of
not animated movies.
Yeah, the height of the Disney sort of experiments with throwing animation into their live action films. Like I said, it's what your parents will think of when they think of live action Disney films, as opposed to like our age who think like, oh, Pirates of the Caribbean.
Yeah,
talking about the Lone Ranger.
Oh yeah,
John Carter of Mars.
Just John Carter.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
They
took out an interesting part and left just a dude's name.
Yep, that worked really well for them.
But this era is the fruits of Walt pushing for more from his studio and sort of building his empire. During this time I spoke about in the main marathon when he started sort of stepping away from not paying quite as much attention to the pure animation because he really wanted to push these live action to develop his studio more as a place that makes films and not just a place that makes animated films. So first up, in 1964, is Mary Poppins.
Classic movie.
It's well known. It is a well known film.
You had opinions on this movie.
I do not care for this movie as a movie.
It's not a good movie.
Sure, there are some fun song moments. And if I was watching a Disney sing-along tape, I'd go, oh, look, there are dancing penguins. Or, oh, there are a bunch of, this is, great dance numbers with all the chimney sweeps. Very good choreography. Lots of huge cast, interesting enough set.
Yeah, this movie's about 2.5 hours long.
And it's about 2 hours too long. It is the story, as you'll find out in the next film, it's really a story about Mr. Banks learning to be a better father and care for his children. But that is only about 40 minutes of the movie. That's there's a little intro where you get okay, maybe this is something that needs to be addressed, and then an hour and a half of nonsense with Mary Poppins, and then okay, also the dad is doing something.
Yeah.
This is some people's favorite movie. Period. Of all films in human existence, these people will say, that is insane. You are wrong. Now, normally I will let people have their opinions, because not everyone likes the same things. Films are highly subjective, but this is not subjective, that this is not the best film. This is not your favorite film. If you think that, you're wrong. This isn't even the best film in this group of films. In fact, I'd probably say it's the worst. It's certainly, at best, it's third. At best, it's third, and I don't think it is. I think it's dead last out of these films. Because, songs aside, there are some fun song moments in this, and I'll give you that. And,
there's good animation moments. As far as the parts of the movie aren't the problem.
It is that they jammed them all together and set 2.5 hours in front of you and said, this is a movie. And I'm like, oh, I'm sorry, sir, it is not. Especially for this being the first one for Walt trying to make his studio a film studio, they failed to make a film. Which is a big swing and a miss. Which, granted, is their first time, so they just use people like they would. It's sort of the problem that plagued a lot of their early animation films. But the animation at this time in the 60s was better than this in terms of actually building a plot. They were getting closer than they did with Mary Poppins. This is just a collection of wacky shorts that you would see Mickey Mouse or Donald Duck doing.
I almost pulled out something that I really enjoyed, but then remembered that's from Bedknobs and Broomsticks.
See? So, you almost tried to enjoy something. You know what you didn't enjoy? Well, you know what we ironically enjoyed? Dick Van Dyke's accent. That is famously bad, and I thought, okay, I'm sure it's not great.
It had been a long time since I've seen it.
Very long
I saw
time.
it was a kid, and so and people kept talking about how bad his accent is. I was like, oh, this will be exciting. Now that I have grown,
now that I've done accents, as an actor, I do a lot of accents.
I was like, let's see Dick Van Dyke. He's a good actor. Let's see.
He's a very good actor.
Yeah,
he's a very good actor.
He does this. Oh my god!
I can't. If I were to try to emulate it and just do the most ridiculous accent I could, it would at best meet it, if not fall short of how terrible his accent is. It reminds me of that Family Guy sketch where they go see a British play and no one understands it, and Chris goes, "He put the trolley on the trim tram." I'm like, that's what it sounds like. It sounds ridiculous. He's such a good actor, and it's the worst accent. There were British people in the cast. Could not one of them go, excuse me, that's not at all anything appropriate. I hate to be a bother, but... I mean, that's the problem. He couldn't understand him. That's what they sound like to him. He had an inner ear infection. So that was the best part of the film, was seeing how horrible his accent really was. It's very, very horrible.
The matte paintings are good.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. Like I said before, like each individual part of this movie is good. Like I think the animation. Well, yeah, not each. Like most of it.
Explain to me the merits of the neighbor that has a cannon on his house and thinks it's a ship.
It's kind of funny.
I don't think it is. I beg to differ.
But yeah, like a lot of the bits, a lot of the songs, like it's all. This movie is less than the sum of its parts, and it suffers a lot from just basic plot structure and things. I don't know how I would have had the attention span for this as a kid.
I don't know what kids do. I think kids remember. I imagine it's probably just
song tapes.
Parents, yeah, sing-along tapes. I know that a lot of them on sing-along tapes. I've heard people our age actually talk about, like, I had the Disney sing-alongs, and they had a bunch of songs on there.
I had no idea that Chim Chimery was so late in the movie.
Yeah, if you would ask me, I always said it was the opening. I was like, yeah, it opens with all the chimney sweeps.
Because my guess is that at some point, and when I was a kid, my parents just put on that song off of a tape, and in that sequence. And so I thought that was the beginning of the tape. That's the first one. That's like... back like last half hour, last 40 minutes of that movie, and it almost is the last half hour of that movie. Jesus Christ, that song's long.
Yeah.
But yeah, that movie's not that great.
Yeah, and what's really surprising, and I'm going to sort of overlap the films here because we're going to Save Mr. Banks. Okay, so I watched Save Mr. Banks when it came out in theaters last year.
Yeah.
So I knew all that going in. I was like, okay, now I understand the full emotional depth that they're going for here, the story and all the backstory and everything that I should feel. And I felt none of it watching Mary Poppins. I felt no stakes. It felt just like a cartoon in a bad way. Like all the other Disney ones are animated films, and they strive to be films. This felt like a cartoon, and I mean that to talk down to this film. See Mr. Banks, though. Talk about a film that is mostly satisfying, very well done.
Yeah, even if it's not entirely historically accurate, or
I don't care.
Yeah, I was gonna say just like
we'll let you know.
This is a perfect tell of the story.
Yeah, we understand that there are some dramatic liberties, which is going to happen in basically any
good if you're going to make a movie.
Yeah, because life generally doesn't happen with appropriate structure. Like if you watch real life develop, even exciting stuff in real life, you're like, oh, this is poorly structured, and we complain about it. This is very well structured, and they heighten the drama by switching some things around and exaggerating.
A lot of the parallels between the modern day for the time story and the flashbacks to her youth.
Yeah,
is really good, and Tom Hanks as Walt Disney is fantastic. Emma Thompson obviously steals the show.
Yes. Paul Giamatti, fantastic supporting role.
What? Paul Giamatti in a fantastic supporting role.
Doing what Paul Giamatti only can.
Tell me more.
Like the smallest, thankless part that anyone, a lesser actor would just go in and just say the words and get a paycheck and be done. And it seems like he's taking just joy out of acting. I get a feeling with Paul Giamatti in this and every film I see him in, he's just like, holy shit, this is my job? Super cool, guys! And just I think he would bring cupcakes for people like, hey guys, I made some cupcakes last night, let's make a movie or something. I don't know.
No, I hope you meet him and he's just a real asshole.
Oh, I hope he is too. I hope he watches this and is like, fuck that fat bastard.
That's not how I am.
That fat son of a bitch, I'm gonna go slash his tires. And then just have
go just collect more Hollywood paychecks. Like, Paul Giamatti, why?
Why? No, I've seen him in Fred Claus, and he had that gorgeous scene with Kevin Spacey. That man is not phoning it in.
He's a good actor, but whatever, it's so dumb.
Fuck you guys. This Saving Mr. Banks almost took a turn.
That'd almost be more delightful than if he was actually really delightful.
That's true. Okay, either one. If he's in the middle, though, I'm going to be really disappointed.
Yeah.
But Saving Mr. Banks. Okay. It opens up and ends with the lyrics to the opening song with the wind coming out of the west or whatever it is. And that shows you how much I loved Mary Poppins. I can't even fucking remember the words. But talk about imbuing something that was just boring and meaningless in Mary Poppins with emotional depth and meaning. It hits you.
Worth pointing out that this is on this list for the time. It just barely makes the cut. as far as associated productions because of one minute-long scene in the movie where they recreate one of the Walt Disney's.
Yeah, it's the Magical World of Walt Disney.
Yeah,
where he did intros. So basically, a TV show, and Tinkerbell flies out, and he's like, "Oh hey, Tink," and they basically just refilmed a segment of it with
Tom Hanks,
and so
they needed to reanimate Tinkerbell. So Disney Animation Studios,
sure, we'll throw Tinkerbell, whatever.
Tinkerbell for 20 frames, and
so technically counts.
And then they're an associated. It's an associated production.
We would have watched it regardless, just sort of.
Yes, to tie it in with Mary Poppins.
Because I wanted to see it back to back with Mary Poppins and
Colin Farrell.
Colin Farrell, yeah.
For a long time, the only thing that I knew Colin Farrell from
Bullseye
was playing Bullseye in Daredevil, which he's not bad in. But that's not exactly showing off a range of acting ability.
To be fair, the first thing I think of when I think of him is that Scrubs episode where he played that guy who got in a fight at a bar and brings that guy to the hospital. So he spends an episode just being charming, and JD and Turk eventually call the cops on him, and it turns out it wasn't his fault. So,
but yeah, he is incredible as P.T. Travers'
Travers Goff. Yeah, is his character's name.
Alcoholic father.
It's heartbreaking.
And he plays it in such a fantastic way, and it's mostly him, but it's also a testament to the structure of the movie.
Mm. Yeah, I want to talk about the editor on this.
You don't quite if you know, his alcoholism doesn't show up for a little while. It's evidenced early on.
You see with bottles and things.
He just seems like a really a fun, enthusiastic dad, and the kid loves him. But the wife at first is upset and almost seems like a stick in the mud. And you're like, what's her problem? And then the more, as the movie goes on, that kind of gets expanded a little bit.
They do a very good job of depicting it from the child's point of view. So basically, early on, he is a magical, wonderful person who is keeping everything together. And you get occasional scenes of the mom finding a bottle, but he's still being fun and playing games with them, and everything's fine. And then slowly you get more you hear them arguing at night, and we see the child and we listen to them arguing with her.
Yeah.
And then basically it all turns at that fair where he makes the big drunken speech and he has the big public collapse. Because that's what even the daughter realizes. So that's when she's oh. So that's when it's evident to the audience, because they do a really good job. But the editor in this is amazing. Just especially during that speech, because basically he gives.
Oh, that's right. Because that's cut in with.
Yes, he gives this speech about sarcastic speech about how wonderful it is to teach children to save their money instead of letting them have fun, and they need to be adults and responsible. Which basically she put into this book as the villain saying, and they made a song out of it because it's Disney and everyone needs to have a song, and so it just cuts beautifully with the Sherman Brothers enthusiastically singing the song and adult P.O. Travers' face, and then the young girl and the dad giving the speech, and just sort of the score kind of just takes it out of there and sort of numbs the sound, and you just get sort of inwardly collapsed with her. There's good editing throughout all this, but that sequence was just a great bit of filmmaking.
Yes. Yeah, as far as the difference between filmmaking quality between Mary Poppins and Saving Mr. Banks...
Biggest jump in the marathon.
Insane.
Yes. Insane.
Also worth noting, the Sherman Brothers and I'm not sure what his role on it, the Bradley Whitford... I'm not sure what
he was the
writer
director.
Or
I think he was the director.
But Bradley Whitford, B.J. Novak, and Jason Schwartzman as the production team that worked close with Travers. They were fantastic and delightful, especially for not doing much in the movie, but then bringing in that quality of actors to really make those small parts count, like they did with Paul Giamatti, is great.
Also, I can't remember her name. She's a that girl, the secretary, who kept bringing in the food. I've seen her a couple different things, and she's delightful.
I don't know her.
I don't know her offhand, but she was delightful.
And
another small character role that was great. Last thing I want to say on this is Mary Poppins came out in 1964. This came out in 2013, which I say for two reasons. One, to point out, okay, that much time. Clearly, Disney learned how to clearly Disney learned how to make movie, plus film technology and all that. We've come a long way. But also, how did they not wait a year and just release it on the 50th anniversary? They released it on the 49th year since the movie came out?
Yeah, and it was December of that year, too. So maybe for the Blu-ray release, they could pack it in or something.
That's the thing. It was for awards, because basically they put it out in December, so that way it could be nominated for awards that year. But just wait a year. It's fine. Whatever. Whatever, it's good.
Bedknobs and Broomsticks.
Which is better Mary Poppins. If you think you like
Absolutely.
Mary Poppins, watch Bedknobs and Broomsticks. It's what you think you're watching.
It has a great plot. It's also entertaining throughout.
It just has as much like wacky, fun songs that are
Oh
good
my
to
God,
watch
what's
and entertain
that?
kids.
Great show-stopping number at the road, something road.
Portobello Road?
Portobello Road.
Yeah.
Talk about a sequence that goes on way too long, but you don't even care because it's so delightful. Mm-hmm. And apparently they cut like 4 minutes from
That's
it.
not a surprise. Like, that was even longer? Jesus. Like, I would run out of lyrics or notes. Like, didn't you play all the notes? We're out of notes. Sorry, boss. Ran out of notes. We can't do anything else.
Piano's done.
Get out of here.
Yeah, it's fun. It's delightful. It's magical, and it has a lot of people are going to recognize the underwater song.
Yes.
Was on a lot of song tapes.
Beautiful Briny Sea, I think it's
something to that effect. That was a lot. That to me was one of the one of the weaker numbers. I mean,
it was
artistically it was good, but just as far as compared to everything else,
yeah. I also think it's easiest to remove from the movie and still have its full effect. So that I think is why I got the wide
it's out there. But
also, it's the one with the most animation in it. It's the song with the most animation.
It is instead of animation in a world of people, it is people in a world of animation that you also get in the soccer game.
Yeah, that's not a song though. So
it's not a song, but like
the soccer game, it was also a good cartoony stuff.
It's a real interesting look to it, and technology-wise, especially for being 1971, looks real good.
It does look really good.
There's obviously looking at it from an eye now, you can be like, well, clearly they're not.
It's still impressive.
I'm not like taken away, like, oh, they're really there, but
basically what they had to do is they took the each frame of live, because they animated over top of the frame because they couldn't like have a backdrop of playing it. So they shot the actors and then they animated over top of the frame of them, basically in front of a blank space, all the things. So what they did is for stuff that went behind the actors, they basically had to they rotoscoped out like the shapes of everyone and then they animated around those shapes and then sat it on top of the film.
Yeah.
Which is an astounding amount of work, and I couldn't have told that it was that difficult, because just seamless. Like fish would swim behind their head and I was like, I saw no clipping or early cutting away. They were very good at their jobs in that. So
a lot of work in that. The guy that plays Mr. Banks in Mary Poppins is back for Bedknobs and Broomsticks, playing this like shyster,
and now he's
like
very
fake
good
magician guy. And man, he's stellar in that.
Also, I want to say
his first bit where he comes out and he has all the fake magic stuff, because he's been like conning people with these like, oh, I'm a wizard. It's all parlor tricks, and then an actual witch is like taking like a correspondence course through him, and then she comes to him. She's like, "Well, why? I need to know why this is working." They're like, "I'm missing a page." Like
she's like, "It's made up," and she's
like,
"All your other spells have worked." She's like, "What?"
Yeah. It's great.
So, fun fact: this movie's called Bedknobs and Broomsticks, and I remember watching this as a child, and you were aware of this movie as well. Yes. And I knew there was a bed that flew or swam or it moved around. I knew there was a bed that transported them, so I knew why it was called Bedknobs. But I just assumed that Broomsticks was just a fun extra title. Yeah, like no thought to it.
Bedknobs and Broomsticks falls off the tongue, basically.
And I just basically didn't even think about like, oh, Broomsticks probably is an integral part to the plot. And then also the opening credits were this amazing like medieval and like graphic medieval sort of like you would find in an old tome, like a Gutenberg book, that kind of art. Basically telling you the plot of the movie. And we're just sitting there like, da-dee-dum, oh, I saw last parts of this, that's good.
Yeah.
Like, being real dumb. And they were like, oh, witches! That's probably why the broomsticks part is in that title.
It's about a witch. Like, oh, got it, I'm on board. Mm-hmm. It's not about a cleaning lady.
Yeah, so I mean, while overall the plot may not, like, the plot arc isn't as polished as, say, a 2013 film like, say, Mr. Banks, the bits are the right amount of length, and they move to the next bit. It's not like nonsense bits avoiding the plot. It's like, okay, she adopts these kids. Okay, well, these kids work at finding out her secret. Oh, they found out she's a witch, so they blackmail her. Okay, now she's doing magic for them.
And she needs this, and she needs to go to this island, so they go to this.
Yeah, so like, while there's a sequence of her trying to use the locomotion spell, which maybe is a 10-minute little sequence with all the stuff going wrong in her house. It then like, okay, now that is done, here's the problem it's created, and here's what we're going to do in the plot to
and then also it comes back later to solve problems towards the end.
Yes, and it's not like Mary Poppins where it's like, let's jump in this painting. Okay, the day's done. Let's go home. Like that's as fun as those painting sequences are, they add nothing to the story.
Yeah. So Bedknobs and Broomsticks, good stuff. Pete's Dragon.
1977, so 6 years later.
Same year as Star Wars.
Same year as Star Wars. Same effects. Basically, a shot remake of Star Wars came out a month later. No. Pete's Dragon is... I remember watching this as a kid, but I couldn't remember much. I knew
exactly. I knew there was a dragon that could turn invisible, and that's all I had.
I knew he had a great laugh, and that checks out. Yes. Very funny animation.
I didn't know that the dragon didn't talk. If you would have asked me, I would have said that the dragon talks.
Oh, Pete, I'm your best friend.
Yeah, something, but it's all just like...
Which is great, because then, like...
Oh, yeah, it's
I don't have dialogue, whatever, and then you're
also,
sad.
Also, the kid, sorry, kid, he was a real shitty actor.
Yeah. To be fair, though, like, until...
And granted, he was acting to, like, a stick, and being like, oh, thanks! Like, what's the... Elliot? Yeah. I was confused. I was like, the dragon's named Pete, right?
So, fun fact, one friend of mine, I can't remember who, I think it might be Becky, so I'm just going to blame Becky and assume that she's the dumbass, thought, for some reason, even though she knew it was called Pete's Dragon, assumed the dragon's name was Pete.
That's what I said. I was like...
And so had, like, a pet dragon named Pete. Or, like, it was a stuffed animal dragon or something that she called Pete. And it's like, oh, I guess let's change that name. It's like, it's Elliot. The dragon's name is Elliot. Yeah, I could have...
No, that's the kid from E.T., dum-dum.
Yeah, so I knew about the Skinner's Dragon. I couldn't have told you about the hillbilly people that had adopted him.
Nope. Or the shyster from this movie.
Or the shyster from this movie, who were very reminiscent of delightful. The Pinocchio villain.
Yeah.
The fox from Pinocchio, very reminiscent of that. Yeah, Mickey Rooney. I wouldn't have told you anything about Mickey Rooney or that woman.
Yeah.
Or that woman's husband.
Yeah, I mean, there's some stuff that I enjoy in this movie.
After Broomsticks and Broomsticks, there's a bit of a letdown. Like, while there's more to enjoy than Mary Poppins, which I think is still the worst out of this bunch,
I didn't think there were a couple moments that I liked with the dragon interacting with things. I liked, like, when the dragon jumped through the wall and it was a dragon-shaped hole.
Yes.
Suddenly, like, things like that I liked. The dragon interacting with the real world, it didn't work as well for me as it did in things like in Bedknobs and Broomsticks and later in Who Framed Roger Rabbit.
Yeah, well,
not to compare things to the future, which seems a bit unfair, but
it seemed a grand experiment for them, which honestly, if they hadn't done Pete's Dragon, they probably wouldn't have been able to help with Roger and Rabbit the way they did. But I understand what you're saying. It's really a film that sort of exists, I think, to experiment. Like, okay, we've done... Because Bedknobs and Broomsticks did the characters fully immersed in this animated world. So, like, all right, now let's try doing this animated character fully immersed in this living world.
Yeah, and in a lot of respects, it was successful. And I'm sure I loved it as a kid, but as an adult watching this movie in this day and age, it didn't hold much for me.
They're talking about remaking it, and I'm really looking forward to the remake because
I could see you doing a fantastic remake of that.
Because I think I see all the elements there to do a really good movie. So I think now with 40 more years of experience making movies,
with technology and with modern just sensibilities, like comedy's changed.
Yes,
I think that it would be something that would be really good.
So I look forward to that because honestly now think how easy it is to make computer generated characters interacting with the world like seamlessly.
Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah.
Like 2 of the 5 members of Guardians of the Galaxy don't exist.
Yeah.
And like you wouldn't be able to tell.
Yeah,
like they are completely seamless with that world.
Yeah, but like they're going to get the animators worked on that to work with them. How are they going to possibly get people from Marvel to... Oh my god! Thank God Disney has all the money now. Just all the money in the world. So yeah, Two Fat Guys presented by Disney.
It's just Rocket's Groot creature, and that's it's just a Rocket Groot spinoff.
Nice.
Which would be great.
So overall, these there's some good stuff to be had here. You can very much tell it's Disney trying to figure out how live action filmmaking works. More so than their early attempts to do pure live action. Well, not pure live action. The live action, then to an animated short, and then back to live action. These are getting a little better. Like, okay, we're going to try to tell a story that's not like a bunch of small stories in it, with the exception of Mary Poppins, because it sucks.
Yeah. So really, I mean, see Bedknobs and Broomsticks if you haven't. Definitely see Saving Mr. Banks. Mm-hmm. Maybe keep Mary Poppins as a nice movie in your head.
Yeah, so...
If you haven't watched that in a really long time and you think you like it, maybe just keep it that way.
We'll say the nostalgia helps these aging. Like, even for me, like... I should probably have a lower opinion of Pete's Dragon, but there's enough nostalgia in my brain that's like, you remember parts of this from your childhood.
Which is weird. The 2 movies that I had seen as a kid, Mary Poppins and Pete's Dragon, I didn't like nearly as much as Saving Mr. Banks and Bedknobs and Broomsticks.
I had seen Bedknobs and Broomsticks, and I remembered little bits of it. I just didn't know the Broomsticks were involved. I apparently didn't remember the plot, like because I was a little kid, so I remembered, bits here, and I remember like, oh, bed that flies, that's awesome. Yeah, I want a flying bed. Woo!
Yeah. So what are our next associated productions?
The next associated production is actually going to be a solo video on Who Framed Roger Rabbit.
Yeah.
Especially in the context of one of the most famous animation studio in the world. No offense, Studio Ghibli, but like worldwide, this is hands down the most famous animation studio in the world. I thought we could, it's probably going to be quite as long as these videos are. We'll do a full half hour on it, but there's enough there to talk about. And plus, it's just a great movie that I love, and we'll look forward to talking about it. So then after that, we
scared the shit out of me as a child.
Yeah, Christopher Lloyd, it should.
Yeah.
And then after that, the next video we have is Associated Productions. In the 90s, it gets a little hairy as to what is and isn't an associated production. So we selected what we did for the marathon, and we're going to talk about why we chose them and why we didn't choose some other things. And overall, just have a good time with it. So until next time, we're two fat guys.
Sorry for wasting your time.
Yay.
Are you a wacky waving inflatable arm flailing tube man?
If it sells tickets, are we selling tickets to this?
No.
Damn it.
I don't think you know how anything on the internet works.
No, you have to buy tickets and then you get to Google something. And
don't give the internet and the FCC ideas.
No,
you come up with internet bucks.
Not even the FCC.
Just buy these internet tokens and you can use them anytime you want.
Like even on Amazon?
Yeah.
Oh man, I gotta give me some internet bucks.
Microtransaction, the internet? Jesus Christ.
Do I really need to Google this? To be fair, I might cut down on like celebrity nude photo leaks.
It's only like 50 cents if you just Google this one thing. Like, oh god, that's a horrifying future.
What if you had to? What if everything was free, but you had to pay a bunch of money for like private search? Like if you don't want anyone to know you're searching for this.
Oh, interesting.
$10 search. Like, do I really want to see this?
Like 50 cents for who is in that movie and $10 for all of porn, basically.
I mean, $10 seems like a steal. I don't know how much porn sites charge now, but it has to be more than 10, right? Because I know no one who pays for porn, and they're still in business. So I just assume like the 6 people pay for porn pay like $100,000 a week.
Jesus,
it's a huge industry. I don't know how it's making money. Banner ads, fucking, I don't know. Because I don't know who's clicking on banner ads to make banner ads pay so much. Like, very confusing to me. I don't understand the economy of porn. There, I said it.
It's going to be the longest. I think I'm going to keep every second of that in.
Damn it, now people know I don't understand something in the economy. I'll never get an accounting job again. You've doomed me.